Welcome back to the Birdcage podcast. I am Jack Kenna, joined alongside ball expert himself, James Madden. James, how are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. I mean, we just obviously watched a KU victory. Not something that was, surprising by any means, but it's a very important to get that first win. So you can
hmm
kind of feel, although it was Howard on campus, you could tell it was opening night and it was game day, and everyone's excited for what seems to be a very, hopefully a very successful KU season.
That is right. The Kansas Jayhawks kicked off their 2024-25 basketball campaign with an 87-57 win over HBCU Howard. James, what were your first instincts or first the first things that you noticed about the game?
Well, I think we talked about it yesterday in the preview. Is I think it was important for Kansas to start out strong and fast
hmm
and play with a fast tempo, and that's how they've been playing in the preseason, getting up and down there. They've been shooting a lot of threes, and they did the same thing tonight. And they just put it away from the get go, right? I think they jumped out to an early like 16-4 lead. Diggy Coit had a good first half. Zeke Mayo, he was getting. We heard a lot of Zeke Mayo chants in
Yep.
the Allen Fieldhouse
Yeah.
because not
Lawrence
only are
kid.
they not only is he playing well, but he's a Lawrence superstar, right? It was him and Devin Neal at Lawrence
Yeah.
High. But Zeke Mayo, I mean, it didn't take him long to become a household name. I mean, he's been a household name for 6, 7 years in Lawrence.
Yeah.
But the fans that aren't from Lawrence understand how good he is and how much he brings to the table. So I think the fans were very excited with how he played. And I was really excited to see how Flory Badunga played. Although,
So was I.
this isn't like playing Iowa State or Houston. His first career game, it could go any way, and it went very well for Flory and for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, it was a very, very good game for Zeke, Flory, and even Hunter. First game back for Hunter, he had 16 points and even contributed on the defensive end with 3 steals and 2 blocks. But I'm going to touch on kind of what you were saying. Flory balled in his first game. He shot a perfect 6 or 6 from the field. 13 points, 8 rebounds for your first game in Allen Fieldhouse. That's got to feel good. Zeke Mayo showed he belonged. Um, his last game against Washburn in the exhibition game was a pretty good. It was a pretty good outing for him after he kind of struggled against Arkansas. But tonight he kind of separated himself a little bit. What do you think about that?
Sorry, who'd you say? You kind of cut out on my feed.
Zeke Mayo. Sorry.
Oh, all right. Yep. Okay. I just for some reason I missed the name part, but
No, yeah.
no, yeah, he looked great, and he's coming. It's a big jump in competition, and although it's he hadn't been playing at he didn't play against another Big 12 opponent just yet. I think the
Mhm.
important thing with Zeke is I heard the broadcasters talking about it, is that he understands the magnitude of Jayhawk basketball, KU culture. The moment it won't be too big for him, and guys like AJ Soar, Riley Griffin, guys like them who are completely new to the KU culture into Lawrence might not get it right away of how you can hear all these things in the offseason. Well, basketball's everything for KU, but it's different once you get actually out on the floor in front of 17,000 people, but also hundreds of thousands on live TV. It's just different when you're actually playing. But Zeke Mayo, he grew up in the Lawrence area. He knows what KU means. He knows what the Jayhawk culture is. And I think that's the important thing, is he just, the moment, it won't be too big for him because this is what he dreamed of. This is what he grew up in. And he's born to play for KU, and that's what he's doing. He took a different route because he was at South Dakota State for a long time, but
Yep.
ultimately he's back where he began his basketball career in Lawrence, and he was born to play for KU and play at the Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah. You touched on it. We kind of just dominated from start to finish. We were fat. It was a fast start for the Kansas Jayhawks, and that continued on the defensive end. Defensively, we kind of suffocated Howard. And I know the second half they put up a lot more points. They had 38 points in the second half compared to 19 that they had in the first half. But what do you think about that, especially that first half defensive performance from KU?
I think KU looked just too fast and maybe too physical for Howard. I mean, and Howard's a team that has been playing. They've played high level basketball, like we talked about in yesterday's podcast. They've made the past two NCAA tournaments. One of those ending with a loss to Kansas, although that team was very different. They had another
Yeah.
guy I was watching earlier. He's at Temple now, Steve Settle, and he was there. Their guy back in 2023, and since has moved on to play with Adam Fisher at Temple. But I think, like I said, they're a very good team, major wise in the MEAC. I think they'll probably win the MEAC again this year. and they can give you, in the tournament they gave in that 2023 game, they kept it close with Kansas for most
They
of the
did,
first
yeah.
half. But I think today coming into the Allen Fieldhouse is a little different than playing at a neutral site. And Kansas looked
Surely,
too
yeah.
fast, too physical, and just too talented. And I think that's going to be the big thing with Kansas this year. In nights where they're having off nights, I think their talent can save them a little bit. And obviously,
Mhm.
that wasn't the case tonight. They dominated start to finish,
Yeah.
but they're so talented that they can get away with having a bad night or two. And I think that's the beauty of this lineup. There's, like we talked about, there's 7, 8, maybe even 9 guys you're comfortable with playing down the stretch in big minutes, 5 minutes to go, and they're just so deep and so talented. So it's going to be a very fun season in Lawrence.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely fun year to be a Kansas Jayhawk fan. I think one reason why I'm super excited to be a KU fan is looking at the 3-point percentage tonight. We shot 50% from three, 11 of 22. Um, that is just something that did not happen last year. What are you excited about looking at this roster and looking at maybe the offensive ability that kind of last year's team lacked?
Yeah, and you mentioned the 3-point percentage. Even Wilder Evers hit a 3-pointer down the stretch late in the game. But in the Kansas fan section, let them know, they were rooting for their guy. But yeah, their looks a lot different. It looks, more high powered than last year. Last year
Yeah.
defensively, I think they were very strong. They always have a good defense at KU, but offensively there were a lot of question marks. Johnny Furphy was inconsistent. McCullough
Mhm.
was on and off the court with injuries. Hunter Dickinson was banged up, but also was just the focal point of every defense. So it made his production tough. But I think having so many options, but having so many guys who can score it from the perimeter, like we talked about Zeke Mayo, Rylan Griffin, who was quiet tonight, but he's a guy that can catch fire pretty easily.
Yeah.
AJ Storrs kind of struggled in the preseason, but is starting to figure it out again. And they just have so many scores this year, which is a lot different than what they had last year. And we talked about it yesterday. It's the beauty of the transfer portal. It can save you like it maybe did KU, but it can also hurt you. But Coach Bill Self and Norm Roberts and all those guys use the transfer portal that's become very popular over the past few seasons to their advantage and built a pretty damn good roster.
Yeah, the last thing that I'm gonna kind of talk about with you before we let you go, we got way more college basketball to watch tonight. But the last thing I kind of want to touch on was that starting lineup. That starting lineup saw AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo both come off the bench. Do you think that is something that will continue, or do you think Zeke Mayo and AJ Storr will finally get there? Maybe not spots back in the rotation, but like find themselves in the starting lineup like everyone assumed that they would.
Yeah, I think you said it yesterday. I think we're going to see a lot of different starting lineups this year based
Mhm.
on who they're playing, what the matchups are, who's hot, who's not. So, like, look at tonight, for example. Rylan Griffin had an off night. Zeke Mayo, on the other hand, did not. So maybe you next game against North Carolina on Friday, you put Zeke Mayo in and then you take out Rylan Griffin. Or Diggy Coit, I thought looked pretty good. I think he only had 8 points, but I think he had 5 assists. He had some big buckets early in the game that led to a Howard timeout, gave KU some momentum. So I think you'll probably see Zeke Mayo in the lineup on Friday, or Coach Self will keep, Zeke Mayo on the bench because there's a lot of players that play better off the bench because you have a 4 or 5 minute grace period. You can see the flow of the game, see the tempo, learn from it, and then go in there with a certain mindset. So it's all about, Zeke Mayo obviously had no problem starting at South Dakota State. I mean, he won Conference Player of the Year last year.
Mhm.
But it'll be interesting to see if Zeke Mayo, after I wouldn't call it a breakout performance because everyone around KU knows how good Zeke Mayo is and can be
Yeah.
for the Jayhawks. But after a very good opening night, I'm interested to see, where Coach Self goes on Friday night with the rotation. But I would like to see Mayo in the starting lineup just because of how well he played. But unless it's maybe starting on the bench thing that he got maybe a little fire coming in, I don't know. But I'm always going to trust Bill Self, and that's why they won by 30 tonight because he knows how to build a team and he knows how to, do his rotations.
At the end of the day, James, you are correct. Bill Self knows how to coach basketball.
I'd
At,
say that's accurate.
at an extremely high level, Bill Self's really good at his job. James, I want to appreciate you for taking the time to join me tonight to
Of
recap
course, Jack.
Kansas Howard basketball game. I will be back with a special guest for,
Oh boy.
for the preview and recap of North Carolina next time.